Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Gates, for your time. My name is Alexis Mei-Lin Smith, and I am a health educator here to talk to you about the epidemic of suicide in young adolescent girls. The current issue at hand is suicidal behavior in young teenage girls within the United States. More specifically, suicidal behavior including suicidal ideation, suicide attempt, and suicide completion among young adolescent females has become a serious public health issue within the United States. Suicide has become the second leading cause of death for girls ages 10 to 14, and the suicide rate has reached an all-time high of 1.7 per 100,000 deaths. For girls ages 12 to 17, suicide is the third leading cause of death, and the rate has doubled in the past 10 years to a rate of 5.1 per 100,000 deaths. An important distinction to note is that while adolescent males are more likely to complete the act of suicide, adolescent females are more than twice as likely to seriously think and contemplate suicide. This is why suicidal behavior is such an important issue for this specific demographic. Numerous multifaceted risk factors such as lack of family cohesion, poor parent-child relationships, substance abuse disorders, interpersonal conflict, life stressors, and lack of emotional self-efficacy skills contribute heavily to the prevalence of young adolescent female suicidal behavior. Here we have the socio-ecological model, which I will use to further describe the issue, as I show you various factors that help and hinder female adolescent suicide at each level. Starting from the outside and working my way in, I'm going to list attributing factors that help prevent adolescent suicide by decreasing the behavior, as well as factors that are associated with increasing the behavior as well. At the policy level, national objectives and nonprofit organizations such as the National Strategy for Suicide Prevention help to promote suicide prevention and awareness by increasing accessibility of resources for those who may need help, as well as educating those who can help those in need. In regard to increasing the behavior, gun access can be extremely dangerous for adolescents with suicidal behavior. Although guns account for only 6.9% per 100,000 suicide deaths, they are very effective and result in death 82.5% of the time. At the community level, campaigns such as Know the Signs have been shown to be a large asset. The statewide campaign encourages people to know the signs of suicide, find the right words, and reach out to someone who may need help. Media portrayal of suicide on television, newspapers, and social media or the internet can be highly influential by romanticizing the behavior and inadvertently encouraging adolescents to commit suicide. At the organizational level, community-based partners in care can be advantageous at youth suicide prevention as they help provide easy access to essential resources such as mental health services and increase community engagement. Lack of health insurance coverage and access to mental health services can increase adolescent suicide as adolescent mental health issues such as depression and anxiety can go untreated. At the interpersonal level, a strong social support system can be highly beneficial as adolescents are more likely to confide and seek emotional support from peers. Peers, especially if trained to become gatekeepers, can identify at-risk youth and further assist by contacting adult or making proper referrals. Furthermore, the emotional family bond is exceedingly important as dysfunctional parent-child relationships and poor family cohesion can significantly be associated with suicidal behavior. At the individual level, religious beliefs and self-efficacy skills have been shown to be strong preventative factors against suicide, as problem-solving, confidence, and hope. Moreover, lack of self-efficacy skills such as poor coping skills and problem-solving skills are strongly linked to suicidal behavior. I propose a 12-week, 6-section, comprehensive cognitive behavioral school-based peer, group, and family therapy program based on the following 3 evidence-based interventions shown to decrease suicidal behavior in adolescents. The first intervention is a cognitive behavioral school-based group therapy aimed to decrease suicidal behavior through increasing coping with distress in response to peers in distress as well. The 12-week program consists of 3 phases. The first phase teaches adolescents how cognition and emotions relate to distress. The second phase teaches and practices self-talk as a form of coping with distress. The third phase consists of group and individual work and practice of skills learned through at-home assignments. This intervention uses the individual and interpersonal levels of the socio-ecological model by altering the individual's knowledge, beliefs, and attitude while soliciting the help of peers to create a reliable, proactive support system. The second intervention is the 12-week Social, Ecological, Cognitive Behavioral Family Therapy for Adolescents aimed to prevent suicidal behavior, depression, and hopelessness. The safety program consists of individual, adolescent, and parent sessions as well as family sessions. The therapy is based on the safety pyramid. The first base level is based on creating time in safe settings with restricting access to potentially dangerous self-harm methods. The second level focuses on creating safe social connections, especially with parents, to help promote listening and validation. The third level is composed of safe activities that promote problem solving. The fourth level helps train safe and purposeful thought that cope with emotional triggers and distress. The fifth and top level aims to equip and improve stress reactions through emotional regulation, behavioral activation, distress tolerance, and mindfulness. This intervention also uses the individual and interpersonal levels of the socio-ecological model by altering the individual's knowledge, beliefs, and attitude, as well as those of its family members to create a more cohesive family unit. The third intervention is an educational-based program called the Signs of Suicide, which is completed in one session. The program teaches adolescents to distinguish suicidal behavior in themselves and in their peers while providing a self-screening tool. The program starts by exposing adolescents to a 17-minute video depicting 3 scenarios relevant to them. Next, a discussion of various topics such as cyberbullying, depression, and self-harm take place. Finally, a self-administered self-evaluation card is completed and evaluated by a trained teacher who can offer further instruction for those if it is requested. This intervention uses the individual and interpersonal levels of the socio-ecological model as well by altering the individual's knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs, as well as enlisting the help of gatekeepers as peers. The intervention will be evaluated using process, impact, and outcome measures to ensure that the intervention operated as designed, impact participants, and elicited the desired outcome of decreased suicidal behavior, increased self-efficacy skills, increased distress tolerance, increased family cohesion, and increased parent-child relationships. The process measure of evaluation would entail creating a checklist which a psychiatrist would use to verify that the intervention was carried out correctly. The checklist would ask questions pertaining to whether each step of the intervention was completed, such as the level of participation of each adolescent and their family members, and whether outside program coursework was completed. The impact measure of evaluation would entail completing a before and after quantitative study. Observational analysis by a psychiatrist would be completed to assess the potential impact of the intervention, for example, increased confidence through verbal and nonverbal cues of the adolescent. This data would be observed and written down by the psychiatrist at the beginning of the program prior to any intervention, and then subsequently during each phase, and then at the end of the program to track the adolescent and family members' improvements, indicating the program elicited the targeted effect. The outcome measure of evaluation would require a psychiatrist conducting an in-depth interview with each adolescent and family member. The targeted outcomes would be measured through answers given to the psychiatrist during the interview, which would then be written down and videotaped for further analysis. The primary potential barriers that may result from the intervention implementation is reluctance to participate from the adolescents that are more closed off and total lack of participations from parents or guardians. Due to the intimacy of the topic, there may be reluctance from adolescents to open up within the group and family setting. But in order to encourage transparency and trust, specific activities and exercises will be used to better help facilitate participation, connection, and trust. Another major barrier that could result is a lack of total participation from one or both parents or guardians due to lack of priority. Since many participants may come from divorced or separated parents, it may be difficult to get both of them to attend. Ideally, both parents would be present, but if only one can or is willing to attend, the next closest relative of the adolescent's choosing, such as a grandparent, aunt, or uncle, would step in for the duration of the program. Adolescents whose parents refuse to participate or are unavailable, 2 of the next closest and willing relatives would be asked to participate. If no relatives are available at all, the adolescent will be designated a surrogate family of sorts who will agree to take on the responsibility of participation within the program, as well as emotional support of the adolescent from that point forward. Here we have the logic model of change, which is a detailed description of the inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and final impact of the proposed intervention, which, as I mentioned previously, is a mix of 3 evidence-based practices. Thank you again for your time and support, and if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to ask.